Jonathan Miller was a man the city knew well, though few truly understood him. At 38, he had built an empire from scratch: tech companies, real estate ventures, and investments that multiplied faster than anyone could predict. His mansion perched on a cliffside in Malibu, glass walls opening to an endless ocean view. To the outside world, Jonathan had it all: wealth, influence, and a stunning girlfriend, Vanessa, who looked like she had stepped out of a Hollywood magazine cover. But inside, Jonathan wrestled with doubts that no fortune could silence. He sat one evening in his library, staring at the flames flickering in the fireplace. Vanessa's laughter echoed faintly from the poolside, where she lounged with friends sipping champagne. Jonathan swirled the brandy in his glass, his brow furrowed. Does she really love me? He thought. Or does she love the cars, the vacations, the endless gifts? These thoughts weren't new. They had haunted him for months. Vanessa was affectionate when the cameras were on or when they were dining at five-star restaurants. But at home, her patience thinned. She was quick to criticize the chef, snap at the staff, and complain about Jonathan's long hours at work. Still, whenever Jonathan suggested a shopping trip or booked a weekend in Aspen, her smile returned instantly. That night, his oldest friend, Mark Carter, dropped by. Mark was everything Jonathan wasn't: easygoing, happily married, living a quiet life running a small law firm. Jonathan trusted him. "John," Mark said, settling into the leather chair across from him, "you've been distracted lately. What's on your mind?" Jonathan exhaled. "It's Vanessa. I don't know if she's here for me or for what I can provide." Mark studied him. "You've had doubts about women before. What makes this different?" "This feels more serious," Jonathan replied, his voice low. "If I'm wrong about her, I can't just walk away unscathed. I need to know the truth before I take the next step with her." Mark leaned forward. "And how do you plan to do that? You can't exactly ask her directly." A shadow of a smile tugged at Jonathan's lips. "No, but I can test her." Mark raised an eyebrow. "Test her? What are you thinking?" Jonathan's voice hardened with resolve. "I'll pretend I've been in an accident. I'll tell her I'm paralyzed, confined to a wheelchair, dependent on her. If she truly loves me, she'll stay. If not, well, I'll have my answer." Mark frowned. "That's dangerous, John. It's deception. What if she finds out?" "I'd rather risk her anger than risk my life with the wrong person," Jonathan said, almost to himself. 2 weeks later, Jonathan set his plan in motion. He disappeared for a weekend, telling Vanessa he was traveling for business. In reality, he stayed in a private clinic, arranging everything with his trusted physician. Bandages were wrapped around his legs, a wheelchair was delivered discreetly to his home, and the doctor was prepared to play along, confirming a diagnosis of permanent spinal injury. When Jonathan returned, Vanessa was waiting at the door in a silk robe, her face lit up with excitement. "Darling, you're back," she said, leaning in to kiss him. But her smile faltered when she saw the wheelchair. "John, what happened?" she gasped. With a carefully measured sigh, Jonathan explained, "There was an accident. My car skidded off the road. The doctors say I may never walk again." Vanessa's manicured hand flew to her mouth. For a moment, her eyes glistened as though she might cry. She hugged him tightly and whispered, "Oh, Jonathan, we'll get through this together. I'll take care of you." Jonathan almost believed her. Almost. The first few days, Vanessa played the part of a supportive girlfriend. She sat beside him during meals, helped adjust his blankets, even stayed home instead of going out with her friends. Jonathan observed quietly, never dropping his act. But soon, cracks appeared. One morning, when Jonathan asked for water, Vanessa groaned. "Do you really need me every second? Can't you call someone from the staff?" That evening, instead of eating dinner with him, she dressed up and went to a gala alone, leaving him with a cold plate. And within a week, she hired help, a young maid named Maria. "This is too much for me to handle," Vanessa announced. "You need professional care, Jonathan. I can't do everything." Maria arrived quietly the next morning, wearing a simple uniform and carrying a small suitcase. She was 27, soft-spoken, with warm brown eyes and a calm presence. Unlike Vanessa's polished glamour, Maria had an air of humility, yet strength radiated from her posture. Her first task was simple: serving Jonathan breakfast. But unlike Vanessa, she didn't just place the tray on the table and leave. She asked gently, "Senor Miller, would you like me to cut the toast into smaller pieces so it's easier for you?" Jonathan nodded, surprised by her thoughtfulness. Over the next few days, Maria took over his care. She wheeled him around the garden so he could feel the sun on his face. She read to him from his favorite novels in the evenings. She listened when he talked about his childhood, about his parents' bitter divorce, and about the emptiness he sometimes felt despite his wealth. Vanessa, meanwhile, grew distant. She spent hours on shopping trips, spa appointments, and social events. Whenever Jonathan asked her to spend time with him, she would say, "I'll be back later, darling. Don't be so needy." One night, Jonathan overheard her on the phone in the hallway. "I can't do this much longer," she whispered angrily. "He's useless now. I feel like a nurse, not a girlfriend." The words struck Jonathan like a knife to the chest. He clenched the armrest of his wheelchair, fighting the urge to confront her immediately. Instead, he remained silent. And yet, in the midst of his heartbreak, Maria's quiet presence became a balm. She never complained, never treated him as a burden. She treated him like a human being, sometimes joking with him, sometimes simply sitting beside him in silence, which felt more comforting than any of Vanessa's forced affection. 3 months passed, each day solidifying Jonathan's realization. The contrast between the two women was undeniable. Vanessa's love was conditional, Maria's kindness unconditional. Jonathan finally knew the truth. The test had worked, but the result wasn't what he expected. Instead of confirming Vanessa's love, it had revealed something deeper, something that made Jonathan question not only his relationship but his entire understanding of what love truly was. And so, with resolve, he decided it was time for the truth to come out. The morning sun streamed through the tall glass windows of Jonathan's mansion, filling the living room with golden light. Outside, waves crashed against the cliffside, but inside, the air was heavy with tension. Jonathan sat in his wheelchair in the center of the room, his hands folded neatly, his jaw set with determination. Today, the test would end. He had rehearsed this moment for days, wondering how Vanessa would react, wondering how Maria would take the truth. His heart pounded in his chest, but his expression was calm, almost unreadable. At exactly noon, Vanessa walked in, dressed in a fitted designer dress, heels clicking on the marble floor. She carried shopping bags in one hand and her phone in the other. Her eyes flicked briefly toward Jonathan before she tossed her bags onto the couch. "Jonathan, you won't believe the sale they had at Cartier. I got the most stunning bracelet," she said, her voice bubbling with excitement, as though his condition didn't exist. Jonathan didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked toward Maria, who stood quietly by the doorway, her hands clasped together. She had been helping him all morning, preparing tea, tidying the room, and offering reassuring glances. "Vanessa," Jonathan said finally, his tone steady, "please sit. There's something I need to tell you." She sighed, clearly impatient, but sat across from him, crossing her legs. "What is it, darling? You sound so serious." Jonathan leaned forward slightly. "I haven't been honest with you. The truth is, I'm not paralyzed." Vanessa blinked, her glossy lips parting in confusion. "What are you talking about?" With slow, deliberate movements, Jonathan placed his hands on the armrests of the wheelchair. He rose to his feet, his legs steady beneath him. Then, to remove any doubt, he walked across the marble floor and back again. Vanessa gasped, her face pale. You can walk. All this time?" "Yes," Jonathan said firmly. "I wanted to know if you truly loved me, or if you loved the lifestyle I gave you. So I pretended to be paralyzed. And what I discovered, was the truth I feared." Her expression shifted quickly, from shock, to anger, to outrage. "How dare you?" she spat. "Do you have any idea what you put me through? Making me waste months of my life playing nursemaid. That's cruel, Jonathan. I could have been living, traveling, enjoying my youth instead of babysitting you." Maria flinched at the harshness of Vanessa's words, but Jonathan stood tall, unmoved. "So, to you, caring for someone you claim to love is a waste of time." Vanessa scoffed, rising to her feet. "Of course it is. I didn't sign up for this. I'm not a caretaker, Jonathan. I'm a partner. If you had really been crippled for life, do you think I would have stayed? Be serious. I deserve better." Her words sliced through the air like glass shattering. The last remnants of doubt Jonathan carried vanished in that moment. He saw her clearly, not as a loving girlfriend, but as a woman who had been using him for wealth, comfort, and status. "Vanessa," he said quietly, though his voice carried an authority that filled the room, "you've given me the answer I needed. You don't love me. You never did. So please, pack your things and leave my house today." Vanessa's mouth fell open. "What? You're ending this? After everything I've done for you?" Jonathan's eyes hardened. "What you've done for me? You abandoned me emotionally the moment you thought I had nothing left to give. You complained, you lied, you treated me as a burden. That is not love. Now leave." For a long moment, Vanessa glared at him, her face twisted with fury. Then, without another word, she grabbed her shopping bags and stormed toward the door, her heels clattering angrily across the marble. The slam of the door echoed like thunder in the silence that followed. Jonathan turned slowly. Maria still stood in the corner, her eyes wide with shock. She seemed torn between relief and disbelief. "Maria," Jonathan said softly, walking toward her, "I owe you an apology. You were caught in the middle of a test you never agreed to. And through it all, you treated me with more kindness than I deserved." Maria shook her head quickly, her voice gentle. "Senor Miller, there's no need to apologize. I was only doing my job." "No," Jonathan said, his voice firm yet tender. "You did far more than your job. You listened to me. You made me laugh when I wanted to cry. You never treated me as a burden, even when you thought I could never walk again. That means more to me than I can explain." Maria's eyes filled with tears. "I only did what I felt was right. You're a good man, Jonathan. You just needed someone to see you, not your wealth." Jonathan's throat tightened. For years, he had been surrounded by people who saw him as a bank account, a stepping stone, a status symbol. But Maria, humble, gentle Maria, had seen him as a human being. "Maria," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "I don't know what the future holds. But I'd like to get to know you, not as my employee, but as someone I respect, admire, and, if you'll let me, someone I could learn to love." Maria's hand went to her chest, her cheeks flushed. She looked down shyly, then back up at him. "Jonathan, I would like that too." A silence fell between them, but it wasn't heavy like before. It was light, filled with possibility. Jonathan reached out, and Maria placed her hand gently in his. Months later, Jonathan and Maria walked side by side along the beach at sunset, their hands intertwined. The waves lapped at the shore, seagulls wheeled overhead, and Jonathan felt something he hadn't felt in years: peace. Vanessa was gone, just a bitter memory. But Maria was there, her smile brighter than the setting sun, her laughter carrying on the breeze. Jonathan no longer wondered if he was loved for his money. He knew, at last, what true love felt like. And it wasn't in diamonds, champagne, or luxury. It was in kindness, loyalty, and the gentle touch of a hand that asked for nothing in return. Moral of the story: money can attract people to your side, but only love, loyalty, and kindness will reveal who is truly meant to stay.